Gisborne is a charming township located in the Macedon Ranges region of Victoria, Australia. Situated 55 kilometres northwest of Melbourne CBD, Gisborne is known as the gateway to the Macedon Ranges and is popular with those seeking a change in lifestyle in a tranquil and relaxed setting. Gisborne is the largest township in the Macedon Ranges. Although it is still a country town, residential property prices here are higher than in most outer suburbs of Melbourne. The original inhabitants of Gisborne were the Wurrung and Wurundjeri Aboriginal people, who called this area home for over 25,000 years. During the Gold Rush era, Gisborne became a remarkably busy location, as it lay on the main road to Forest Creek and Bendigo. European settlement near Gisborne began in 1836. The story of Gisborne is the story of its early settlers, who arrived with hopes of making their dreams a reality. For them, it was a fight for survival. John Aitken was a pioneer settler of Melbourne who left Launceston in Van Diemen's Land just 6 weeks after John Batman, in August 1835, to explore the possibilities of Port Phillip. Aitken settled around 8 kilometres south of Gisborne, near an area now known as Mount Aitken, after shipping his 600 merino sheep in the brig, the Chili, from Tasmania to the Macedon Ranges. Henry Howey was the first man to squat on the land that is today's Gisborne. Howey's run extended along the creek beyond what is now Riddell Creek, toward Lancefield Junction. The station was divided into 3 runs: Head, Red, and Junction. Howey also purchased land at the first land sales in Melbourne. He then returned to Parramatta to bring his wife, 6 children, and some staff members to settle in this district. However, in 1838, their small vessel, Sarah, was wrecked on 90 Mile Beach en route to Gisborne. Henry Howey executed a will on April 23, 1835, about a month before John Batman headed for Indented Head in Port Phillip Bay. As a result, the will makes no reference to the acquired lands at Old Gisborne or the Melbourne town lots he purchased in the first land sale. Howey's brother inherited his Melbourne property. Howey's stock at Gisborne was sold by auction according to his will, but no one inherited his squatter rights in Gisborne. As a squatter, Howey didn't own the land he was grazing in Gisborne. His name is commemorated in Howey Street and by the Howey Monument, where his bust overlooks Howey Reserve. In 1840, John Carr Riddell and his cousin Thomas Ferrier Hamilton purchased the land that Howey had originally selected. The most famous establishment in the area during the 1840s was the Bush Inn. Built by a man named Petty, it was first licensed on April 13, 1840. Initially known as the Traveller's Rest, it changed hands in 1843 when George Stokes became the proprietor and renamed it the Bush Inn. During the Gold Rush years, Gisborne became a popular resting place for prospectors heading to Castlemaine and Bendigo. The Bush Inn was a prominent stopover, especially since the notorious Black Forest at Woodend was a dreaded area for travellers due to the presence of bushrangers. To avoid travelling through the area at night, many chose to rest in Gisborne. The Bush Inn fell into decay and was eventually demolished in 1876. The name the Bush Inn was commonly used to refer to Gisborne until 1851 by travellers to the region and residents of the township. In those days, Aitken Street was the main street in Gisborne. After the construction of Mount Alexander Road, Hamilton Street became the main commercial street. Before 1851, all these streets and roads were merely bush tracks. Following the Gold Rush, by 1853, many hotels and lodgings sprang up in Gisborne. In the early 1850s, Surveyor General of Port Phillip, Robert Hoddle, received a directive from the officers of New South Wales Governor Charles Fitzroy to lay out a township near the Bush Inn. A plan for the new township was sent for approval to the Surveyor General of New South Wales in March 1851, and land sales began later that same year. The town was named after Henry Fish Gisborne, a young man who was a magistrate in Sydney in 1836 at just 21 years old and became Commissioner of Crown Lands for Port Phillip in 1839. Henry Gisborne also led the border police at the age of 26. In June 1840, he drafted and delivered the first petition for the separation of the Port Phillip district to Governor Gipps. In 1840, Henry Fish Gisborne established an outpost for his border police troopers to assist colonialists in suppressing Aboriginal resistance in what is now Gisborne. This is one reason the new township was named in his honour. Gisborne resigned due to ill health in March 1840 and sailed from Sydney for England. He died between the Cape of Good Hope and St Helena on April 21, 1841, at the age of 28. During the Gold Rush years, Gisborne flourished. At its peak in the 1860s, there were 12 hotels and 2 breweries. In 1885, William Westgarth, a member of a royal commission that investigated the state of the gold fields, described Gisborne as a promising little town. In 1858, the Gisborne Courthouse was built. The Court of Petty Sessions met regularly from 1858 until 1970 and occasionally until 1980, when it was officially closed. In 1860, Gisborne was declared a district and became a shire on February 24, 1871. On January 19, 1995, the shires of Gisborne, Newham, Romsey, Woodend, and part of the Shire of Kyneton were amalgamated to form the Macedon Ranges Shire Council. The railway reached Gisborne in 1861. When the railway line to Castlemaine was constructed, it was decided that the line would pass 2.5 kilometres east of the Gisborne township. A toll gate was established between Gisborne and the railway station near the bridge over Jackson Creek. This arrangement disadvantaged the townspeople, who had to pay a toll to travel to and from the railway station. After much deliberation, the authorities relocated the toll gate further along Mount Alexander Road. A new township sprang up around the railway station, and this new settlement was called New Gisborne. Despite its limitations as a country town, Gisborne was the birthplace of one of Victoria's most well-known industries of the past. Butter churn maker Cherry and Sons produced various models of cherry churns from 1858 until its closure. As Cherry's butter churns gained popularity among country housewives, the company diversified into other dairy-related product manufacturing. The churns were made of kauri pine. The company was successful not only in selling its churns across Australia, but also in exporting them to countries such as South Africa, Singapore, Hong Kong, Manila, Shanghai, and Zimbabwe. During the worst of the infantile paralysis epidemic, when hospitals were in urgent need of respirators, Cherry and Sons responded by producing a large number of them. It was said that Cherry and Sons could make almost anything out of wood in those days. Things to see and do. Courthouse, Lockup and Pioneer Park. Located at number 2, Hamilton Street, the Gisborne Courthouse is now home to the Gisborne and Mount Macedon Districts Historical Society. The courthouse was built in 1858. Gisborne Pioneer Park was established by the Historical Society in 1996 and was officially opened on January 26, 1997. The police lockup is open daily for visitors, and the courthouse is open on Wednesdays. Macedon House. Macedon House, located at number 2, Kilmore Road in Gisborne, is a heritage treasure of Victoria dating back to 1847, with a rich history behind it. It has silently witnessed the growth of Gisborne for the past 175 years. Originally built as the Mount Macedon Hotel for Elizabeth and Thomas Gordon in 1847, it was delicensed and became a guest house and private residence in 1867. After changing hands several times, the property was sold for $1.36 million at a mortgagee auction in 2018. Heritage Victoria has issued guidelines to the new owners to restore the building and prevent deterioration of the structure. Gisborne Botanic Gardens. The suggestion to establish the nearly 4-hectare Gisborne Botanical Gardens was first proposed in 1991. A working group formed by the former Shire of Gisborne decided on a New Zealand theme for the gardens, partly because Gisborne shared a sister city status with the New Zealand township of Gisborne. The sister city relationship between Gisborne in Victoria and Gisborne in New Zealand began in 1976. The land had been in the possession of the Gisborne Shire Council since the 1980s. Work on the site began in 1992 with the creation of 2 ponds to the southeast and southwest. In 1993, the Gisborne City Council in New Zealand gifted 30 plants, which became the basis of the Shire's collection of New Zealand flora in the gardens. The gardens were officially opened to the public on November 9, 1996, by Dr. Philip Moores, then Director of the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. The Gisborne Olde Time Market. The market is held on the first Sunday of every month, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. There is a story behind the establishment of the market. In 1975, a young boy was knocked down by a car in Gisborne. Because there was no local ambulance available to transport the unconscious patient to the hospital, an ambulance was eventually located more than an hour away, on the road between Echuca and Bendigo. This experience, noted by the local police sergeant, emphasized the need for an ambulance in the growing town of Gisborne. A public meeting was called by the Ratepayers Association, and from that meeting, the Gisborne Ambulance Auxiliary was formed in 1975. Members each donated a couple of dollars to open the initial bank account. After the first fundraising event raised only $15, the sergeant suggested holding a market in the garden of Macedon House, the former 1847 Mount Macedon Hotel. The event proved to be such a success that it became a regular monthly occurrence. It moved to the service roads of Aitken and Hamilton Streets, and, more than 40 years later, continues to operate in this expanded area on the first Sunday of every month.